The emergency beacon flashed red across every screen in the human embassy station. Ambassador Elena Vasquez set down her morning coffee and stared at the official seal that appeared on her main monitor. The golden symbol of the Galactic Council had never looked so threatening. Urgent diplomatic summons, the message began in the standard galactic language. The species known as humanity is hereby formally accused of violating the sacred accords of peaceful coexistence. Immediate response required. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she read the charges. Unauthorized military expansion. Territorial aggression against the Zephyrian Trade Consortium. Destruction of a diplomatic vessel. Each accusation carried penalties that could destroy humanity's place in galactic society. She called her senior staff immediately. Within minutes, her office filled with worried faces. Captain Rodriguez from Security, Dr. Park from Xenobiology, and Commander Hassan from Communications all crowded around her desk. "How bad is this?" Captain Rodriguez asked, reading over her shoulder. "The worst possible," Elena replied. "These aren't minor violations. The Council is accusing us of acts of war." Dr. Park pulled up the historical records on her tablet. In 12,000 years of Council history, formal accusations like this have been made against 43 different species. Every single one followed the same pattern afterward. "Which is?" Commander Hassan prompted. "Negotiation, admission of partial guilt, payment of reparations, and acceptance of Council oversight." Dr. Park read from the data. "No species has ever refused to negotiate. Ever." Elena stood and walked to the large window overlooking Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. The planet below buzzed with activity from dozens of different alien species. Ships from across the galaxy came and went in endless streams. For 3 years, humanity had been part of this magnificent civilization. Now it all seemed ready to slip away. "What exactly are they claiming we did?" Captain Rodriguez asked. Elena brought up the detailed accusations on the main screen. "They say our fleet conducted unauthorized expansion into Sector 7 Alpha. They claim we attacked Zephyrian trading posts and destroyed their diplomatic ship." The Harmony's voice. "That's impossible," Commander Hassan said immediately. "I have the complete fleet records. Our ships in that sector were on a rescue mission." "Rescue mission?" Elena turned to face him. "The Zephyrian colony on Kepler 442b was hit by solar flares. Their own government declared the planet lost and pulled out their ships. But our long-range sensors detected life signs. Admiral Chen Wei authorized a humanitarian mission to evacuate survivors." Dr. Park looked up from her tablet. "The Zephyrians abandoned their own people?" "Apparently so. Admiral Chen's report says we saved over 2,000 Zephyrian colonists. We set up temporary refugee camps in unclaimed space and provided medical care and supplies." Elena felt a cold anger building in her chest. "And the diplomatic ship?" The Harmony's voice wasn't diplomatic. Captain Rodriguez said grimly. "It was a military vessel. When our rescue ships arrived at the refugee camps, it opened fire without warning. Our ships defended themselves. Do we have proof of all this?" Elena asked. Commander Hassan nodded. "Complete sensor records, communication logs, medical reports from the rescued colonists, everything." Elena sat back down, her mind racing. The standard procedure was clear. When the Council made formal accusations, the accused species would send a delegation to negotiate. They would admit to some wrongdoing, even if they were innocent. To maintain galactic harmony, they would pay whatever reparations the Council demanded and accept whatever oversight was imposed. But humanity had evidence. Real evidence that they had done nothing wrong. In fact, they had done something heroic, saving lives that the Zephyrians themselves had given up for lost. "Ma'am," Dr. Park said quietly, "every species that has faced accusations like this has negotiated. The Council expects it. They've already prepared mediation chambers and assigned neutral arbitrators. The Altarian Chancellor herself will oversee the proceedings. The Altarians have been mediating galactic conflicts for 6,000 years, Commander Hassan added. They're considered the most diplomatic species in the galaxy." Elena looked at each of her staff members. "And if we refuse to negotiate?" Silence filled the room. Dr. Park finally spoke up. "No one knows. It's never happened before. The closest precedent was the Vorthan Rebellion 800 years ago, but even they eventually agreed to negotiations. What happened to the Vorthans?" "They're extinct," Dr. Park said softly. Elena walked back to the window. Below, alien ships continued their peaceful dance through the orbital traffic lanes. Somewhere among them were Zephyrian vessels. their crews probably celebrating their successful manipulation of the council system. "Ma'am," Captain Rodriguez said, "we have 48 hours to respond to the summons. What are your orders?" Elena thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had trusted their representatives to protect their interests in the galaxy. She thought about the rescued Zephyrian colonists now safe in human care. She thought about the truth sitting in their databases clear and undeniable. "Commander Hassan, prepare a transmission to the Galactic Council." "Yes, ma'am. What message should I send?" Elena turned back to her staff, her decision made. 2 words. "Prove it." Dr. Park's tablet clattered to the floor. "Ma'am, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. If the Council wants to accuse humanity of crimes, they need to prove their accusations. We're not going to negotiate away our innocence for the sake of galactic politics." "But ma'am," Commander Hassan protested, "this could mean war. The Council has never faced direct defiance like this." "Then maybe it's time they did," Elena replied firmly. "Prepare the transmission." 2 words, "prove it." Send it on all diplomatic frequencies so every species in the galaxy knows our response. Captain Rodriguez stood up slowly. "Ma'am, I need to ask directly. Are you prepared for the consequences of this decision?" Elena looked at each of them again. These people had trusted her to represent humanity's interests. Now she was asking them to trust her with humanity's future. "The consequences of lying down and accepting false accusations would be worse," she said. "If we negotiate away our innocence now, we'll never be able to stand up for ourselves again. The Zephyrians will know they can manipulate the system against us. Other species will see that humans can be pushed around." She moved to her desk and activated the transmission system herself. "This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez speaking for all of humanity. Our response to the Galactic Council's accusations is simple. Prove it." The message went out across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Within hours, it would reach every council member world. For the first time in 12,000 years, an accused species had refused to negotiate. Elena sat back in her chair and picked up her coffee. It had gone cold, but she drank it anyway. There was no going back now. Humanity had just changed the rules of galactic diplomacy forever. "What do we do now?" Dr. Park asked, still staring at the transmission confirmation on the screen. "Now we wait," Elena said. "And we prepare to prove that sometimes refusing to negotiate is the only way to find the truth." Outside the window, the ships of a dozen species continued their endless dance around Nexus Prime. But everything had changed. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity said no. The council chambers had never been so quiet. Chancellor Vethara of the Altarians stood at the center of the vast circular room, her forearms gesturing helplessly as she tried to process what had just happened. Around her, representatives from 47 different species sat in stunned silence. "Prove it," she said again, her translation device struggling with the concept. "I do not understand these words in this context." The crystalline delegate from Sigma Centauri chimed softly, their words echoing through mineral resonance. Perhaps their translation systems malfunctioned. Surely they meant to request mediation parameters. "No malfunction," replied the insectoid hive speaker for the Sector 12 collective. "Human translation systems are primitive but functional." They said exactly what they meant. High Counselor Zeftar of the Zephyrian Trade Consortium slammed his clawed hand on his speaking platform. "This is outrageous. The humans are clearly trying to delay justice through confusion tactics. We demand immediate enforcement of standard protocols." Chancellor Vethara's primary translator worked frantically, consulting linguistic databases across the galaxy. According to Human Language Archives, prove it as a challenge. They are demanding that we provide evidence of our accusations before they will participate in negotiations. The chamber erupted. Delegates began speaking in dozens of languages simultaneously, their words overlapping in a cacophony of confusion and outrage. Some species had never heard of such a concept. Others found it so alien they couldn't process the meaning. "Order," Chancellor Vethara called, her voice amplified to override the chaos. "Order in the chamber." Slowly the noise died down. The Chancellor's ceremonial robe shifted colors from calm blue to worried orange as she addressed the assembly. In 12,000 years of council history, no species has ever refused to negotiate when formally accused. Our entire mediation system is built on the assumption that all parties will participate in good faith discussions to reach an acceptable compromise. The elderly delegate from the Wise Collective of Altair, Beta leaned forward on his walking stick. Perhaps we should explain to the humans how our system works. They are new to galactic civilization. They may not understand proper diplomatic protocols. Before Chancellor Vithara could respond, every communication system in the chamber chimed simultaneously. Another message from the human embassy had arrived. Admiral Chen Wei's face appeared on the main screen, his expression stern and unyielding. Behind him, charts and tactical displays showed detailed star maps and sensor readings. To the Galactic Council, he began. Since you have chosen to make accusations against humanity, we will now present the facts. High Counselor Zeftar rose from his seat. This is highly irregular. Accused parties do not present evidence during formal accusations. That is not how the system works. Admiral Chen continued as if he hadn't heard the interruption. On stardate 23A7.4, our long-range sensors detected a solar flare event in the Kepler 442 system. The flares would make the planet uninhabitable for several months. We immediately contacted the Zephyrian Trade Consortium to coordinate evacuation efforts. The Admiral's display shifted to show communication logs. The Zephyrian response was that the colony was economically unviable, and they would not waste resources on evacuation. Quote, natural disasters provide efficient population control. The weak colonies should be allowed to fail. End quote. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. Several species had never heard such callous language from the Zephyrians before. However, Admiral Chen continued, our sensors detected over 2,000 life signs on the planet. These were not economic statistics. They were living beings about to die from radiation exposure. The display changed to show thermal imaging of the planet's surface. Clusters of warm spots clearly showed where people were sheltering in underground facilities. Admiral Chen Wei of the Human Rescue Fleet made the decision to launch Operation Safe Harbor. 12 ships, all clearly marked with humanitarian symbols, entered the system to evacuate survivors. High Counselor Zeftar was now standing and gesturing frantically. Those were our territorial waters. The humans had no right to interfere with our internal decisions. Your internal decision, Admiral Chen replied coldly, was to let 2,000 beings die. The chamber fell silent again. Many delegates looked uncomfortable. The concept of abandoning people to die for economic reasons didn't translate well into their cultures. Admiral Chen's presentation continued. The evacuation was successful. All survivors were transported to temporary refugee facilities in unclaimed Sector 7 Alpha. They received medical care, food and shelter while we searched for permanent resettlement options. Unauthorized territorial expansion, Zeftar shouted. Empty space, Admiral Chen corrected. No claims filed, no settlements, no economic activity. Just empty space where we could help people without bothering anyone. The display shifted again, showing the final incident. 3 days after the evacuation, the Zephyrian vessel Harmony's Voice approached our refugee camp. We hailed them, assuming they had come to take responsibility for their people. The tactical recording began to play. The human ships were clearly visible, along with the refugee camp's temporary structures. The Zephyrian ship approached under what appeared to be peaceful conditions. Instead, Admiral Chen said grimly, they opened fire without warning. The recording showed energy weapons striking the human ships. The refugees could be seen running for cover as explosions rocked the camp. The Harmony's Voice fired first. Our ships defended themselves and the people under our protection. When the Zephyrian ship was disabled, we provided medical aid to their crew and asked why they had attacked a humanitarian mission. Admiral Chen's expression grew even more serious. Their captain informed us that the colony had been a mining operation, not a civilian settlement. The colonists we rescued were actually workers who had discovered valuable quantum crystal deposits. The Zephyrians planned to let them die so they could claim the planet was uninhabited and return later to strip mine it without paying worker benefits or environmental fees. The chamber exploded into chaos again. Delegates were shouting in dozens of languages, some demanding proof, others expressing outrage. Chancellor Vithara struggled to maintain order. High Counselor Zeftar was waving all 4 of his arms. Lies, fabrications, human propaganda. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the noise. We have complete sensor logs, communication records, and testimony from the rescued workers. We also have the confession of the Harmony's Voice captain, recorded under standard truth verification protocols. The Admiral leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. The humans did not expand territory. We saved lives. We did not commit aggression. We defended innocent people. We did not destroy a diplomatic vessel. We disabled a military ship that fired on a refugee camp. He stood up, his uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's combined forces. We have committed no crimes. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium has. If the Council wants to pursue justice, we suggest you investigate the real criminals. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Chancellor Vethara slowly lowered her forearms. In 12,000 years of mediating galactic conflicts, she had never seen anything like this. Accused parties were supposed to accept some responsibility, express regret for misunderstandings, and work toward acceptable compromises. They weren't supposed to present evidence that their accusers were lying. This is, she began, then stopped. Her translation systems had no words for what this was. The delegate from the Wise Collective spoke softly. Chancellor, perhaps we should examine this evidence before proceeding with standard mediation protocols. Examine evidence? High Counselor Zeftar screeched. That's not how this works. Accusations are made. Negotiations begin. Compromises are reached. We don't waste time with investigations. Maybe, said the crystalline delegate thoughtfully, we should start. Chancellor Vethara looked around the chamber. For the first time in her long career, she saw uncertainty in the faces of her fellow delegates. The humans had done something unprecedented. They had refused to negotiate and demanded proof instead. This session is adjourned, she announced finally. The Council will consider its options. As the delegates filed out, many stopped to speak with each other in hushed tones. The word prove was being translated into dozens of languages, each species trying to understand what it meant when applied to diplomatic accusations. High Counselor Zeftar remained in his seat, his claws digging into the armrests. Everything had been going according to plan until the humans refused to follow the script. For the first time in galactic history, someone had said no to the system. The question now was what the galaxy would do about it. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the human embassy's main conference room, surrounded by translation devices and cultural analysis computers. As humanity's chief xenoanthropologist, she had spent the last 3 days trying to explain human legal concepts to increasingly confused alien diplomats. I still do not understand, said Ambassador Quiltak of the Feathered Hegemony, his colorful plumage shifting to patterns that indicated deep confusion. Your species demands proof of guilt before accepting consequences. This concept has no translation in our language. Sarah rubbed her temples. It's called presumption of innocence. In human society, when someone is accused of a crime, they are considered innocent until evidence proves they are guilty. The holographic representative of the Silicon Collective flickered with what might have been amusement, but this makes no sense. If there is an accusation, there must be some truth to it. Otherwise, why would the accusation exist? Because people lie, Sarah said simply. The room fell silent. Various alien delegates looked at each other with expressions that ranged from confusion to horror. Lie? Quiltak's feathers turned a sickly yellow color, but accusations are made by official authorities. Authorities do not lie. Authorities are made up of people, Sarah explained patiently. People sometimes lie to gain advantage, to cover up their own mistakes, or to get something they want. The representative from the Hive Mind Collective made a buzzing sound that her translator interpreted as distress. This is impossible. In our society, individual thoughts are shared with the collective. Lies cannot exist when all minds are connected. Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing human legal principles. Look, it's very simple. When someone is accused of a crime, we have a trial. The accusers present their evidence. The accused can present their own evidence. A neutral judge or jury examines all the evidence and decides who is telling the truth. Ambassador Vorthak of the Crystal Courts made a sound like breaking glass. But this system implies that official accusations might be false. How can a society function if citizens do not trust their authorities? Our authorities earn trust by being honest and proving their claims, Sarah replied. If they lie or make false accusations, they lose their authority. The aliens exchanged glances that seemed to say this was the most alien concept they had ever encountered. Dr. Chen, said Ambassador Quiltak slowly, are you telling us that humans regularly challenge their own leaders? When our leaders are wrong, yes. And your leaders accept this? If they want to stay in power, they have to. The holographic Silicon Collective representative flickered rapidly. This explains much about human behavior that we found incomprehensible. Your tendency to question established procedures, your resistance to accepting consensus decisions, your insistence on individual rights even when they conflict with group harmony. Sarah nodded. Exactly. We believe that the truth is more important than keeping everyone happy. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers, Chancellor Vethara was meeting with her senior advisors. The elegant Altarian leader had not slept in 3 days, her usually perfect robes wrinkled and stained with stress sweat. The situation is unprecedented, she told her assembled staff. 23 species have formally requested that we examine the human evidence before proceeding with mediation. 15 others have demanded that we ignore the evidence and follow standard protocols. 9 species are threatening to withdraw from the Council entirely if we don't handle this correctly. Senior Advisor Kethaval consulted his datapad. The problem is that we don't know what correctly means anymore. Our entire system is built on the assumption that accused parties will negotiate in good faith. What about the evidence the humans provided? Asked Junior Advisor Yethara. Chancellor Vethara's robes shifted to a worried purple. That's another problem. If we examine their evidence and find that the Zephyrians were lying, what does that mean for all the previous mediations we've conducted? How many other species might have been falsely accused over the centuries? The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council's authority rested on their reputation as fair mediators. If that reputation crumbled, the entire galactic civilization could collapse into chaos. Chancellor, Senior Advisor Kethaval said carefully, perhaps we should consider the humans' position more carefully. What if they are right? Right about what? What if determining the truth is more important than maintaining diplomatic harmony? The Chancellor's robes turned an alarmed orange. That's a very dangerous line of thinking, Kethaval. In the Zephyrian Trade Consortium's private chambers, High Counselor Zeftar was having his own crisis meeting. His forearms gestured frantically as he spoke to his senior staff. The humans have no right to demand proof, he screeched. For 8,000 years the council system has worked perfectly. Accusations are made, negotiations happen, everyone gets something, everyone gives up something, and conflicts are resolved. Sir, his aide Jiftar said nervously, some of the council members are asking to see our evidence against the humans. Evidence? We don't need evidence. We have accusations. Official accusations from a recognized council member. But sir, the humans have provided very detailed records showing that we… Jiftar hesitated. Showing that we what? Showing that we abandoned our own people to die and then attacked a humanitarian mission. Zeftar's claws scraped against his chair. Those records could be fabricated. Human technology is primitive. Their sensors could be malfunctioning. Sir, they also have testimony from the colonists the colonists who were evacuated. Paid actors. Human propaganda. Jiftar pulled up files on his personal device. Sir, I've been reviewing our own records from the Kepler 442 operation. The humans' version of events matches our internal reports exactly. High Counselor Zeftar stared at his aide. Are you questioning official consortium policy? No, sir, I'm just noting that the human evidence appears to be accurate. Accuracy is irrelevant. Zeftar slammed all 4 hands on his desk. What matters is maintaining the system. If every species starts demanding proof of accusations, the entire council structure will collapse. Back in the human embassy, Ambassador Elena Vasquez was receiving reports from across the galaxy. The human refusal to negotiate had created ripple effects that no one had anticipated. Ma'am, Commander Hassan reported, we're getting communications from 17 different species asking for copies of our evidence. They want to study human legal concepts. Any word from the council itself? Nothing official. But our intelligence suggests they're in complete chaos. Half of them want to examine our evidence. The other half want to ignore it and proceed with standard mediation. Elena looked out at the stars. What about the Zephyrians? They're demanding that the council ignore all evidence and impose immediate sanctions on humanity for refusing to negotiate. Dr. Park entered the room carrying a thick datapad. Ma'am, I've been analyzing the responses from different species. The results are fascinating. How so? Species with collective consciousness or hive minds can't understand why we would challenge authority. Species with strong hierarchical structures see our refusal as dangerous rebellion. But species with individual-based societies are starting to ask questions about their own past dealings with the Council. Elena raised an eyebrow. What kind of questions? Whether they were actually guilty of the things they were accused of. Whether they should have demanded proof before accepting blame. Whether the Council system is actually fair or just designed to maintain order. Commander Hassan whistled softly. We may have started something bigger than we intended. No, Elena said firmly. We started exactly what needed to be started. For too long, this galaxy has valued order over justice, harmony over truth. Maybe it's time for that to change. She activated her communication system. Get me Admiral Chenwei, it's time to present the rest of our evidence. The rest? Dr. Park asked. Elena smiled grimly. We've only shown them what happened at Kepler 442. We haven't shown them the pattern yet. Pattern? The Zephyrians have done this before. Multiple times. We have records of at least 6 similar incidents over the past 50 years. Fake colonies, abandoned workers, mysterious accidents, and convenient council mediations that always ended with the Zephyrians getting what they wanted. Commander Hassan stared at her. You're talking about systematic fraud spanning decades. I'm talking about proving that the entire council mediation system has been compromised from the beginning. Elena looked out at the stars again. The galaxy wanted us to negotiate away our innocence. Instead, we're going to give them something they've never had before. The truth. The communication system chimed. Admiral Chenwei's face appeared on the screen. Admiral, Elena said, it's time to show them everything. Are you ready to change the galaxy? Chenwei smiled. Ma'am, I thought you'd never ask. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at midnight Galactic Standard Time. Chancellor Vethara stood before the assembled delegates, her ceremonial robes cycling through every color of distress her species could display. The humans have presented additional evidence, she announced, her voice barely steady. Evidence that suggests the Kepler 442 incident was not an isolated event. The chamber erupted immediately. Delegates from dozens of species began shouting in their native languages, their words overlapping in a cacophony of confusion and anger. Order, Chancellor Vethara called, but her voice was lost in the chaos. It was the deep, resonant tone of the ancient collective representative that finally brought silence. The massive tree-like being rarely spoke, but when they did, their words carried the weight of millennia. Let the humans present their findings, the ancient said, their voice like wind through cosmic forests. We have maintained order for 12,000 years. If that order is built on lies, then it is no order at all. Admiral Chenwei's image appeared on the main display, flanked by Dr. Sarah Chen and a new figure that made many delegates lean forward in recognition. Former Zephyrian mining supervisor Krell Noth, one of the colonists rescued from Kepler 442. Honored Council, Admiral Chen began. What we discovered at Kepler 442 led us to investigate similar incidents throughout Zephyrian space. What we found will shock you. The display shifted to show a star map highlighting 17 different systems. Over the past 50 years, the Zephyrian Trade Consortium has reported 17 colonial disasters requiring council mediation. Each time they claimed other species had interfered with their legitimate operations. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward. We contacted survivors from these incidents. What they told us revealed a pattern of systematic fraud. Krellnoth spoke next, his reptilian features serious. The consortium would establish fake colonies on planets rich in quantum crystals or rare minerals. They would staff these colonies with expendable workers, criminals, debtors, political dissidents. Then they would wait. Wait for what? Asked the Silicon Collective representative. For other species to discover the planets and their resources, Admiral Chen continued. When explorers or traders showed interest in the area, the consortium would trigger a crisis. Solar flares, equipment failures, plague outbreaks, anything that would require outside intervention. The chamber was dead silent now. Every delegate stared at the display as the implications became clear. Krellnoth's voice carried the weight of personal pain. When the other species tried to help, the consortium would accuse them of territorial violations and interference. The council would mediate, and somehow the other species would always end up paying reparations while the consortium kept the mineral rights. That's... Chancellor Vethara's translator struggled to find appropriate words. That's monstrous. Dr. Sarah Chen activated a new display showing detailed records. We have testimony from 347 survivors across 12 different incidents. We have internal consortium communications discussing the strategy. We have mining surveys conducted before the fake colonies were established. High Counselor Zeftar, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly stood up. These are fabrications. Human lies designed to discredit the consortium. The Council cannot accept such obvious propaganda. Then perhaps, said Admiral Chen calmly, the Council should conduct its own investigation. The words hung in the air like a challenge. For 12,000 years, the Council had never investigated anything. They mediated. They negotiated. They found compromises. Investigation implied that mediation might not be enough. Chancellor Vethara looked around the chamber. The Council has never... We don't have procedures for... Then maybe it's time you developed some, Dr. Sarah Chen said firmly. The delegate from the Wise Collective of Altair Beta rose slowly, leaning heavily on his walking stick. In my long life, I have seen many council mediations. I have always wondered why the accusers seemed so certain of guilt before any discussion began. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Other delegates began to shift uncomfortably. I request a formal investigation, the elderly delegate continued. Not mediation. Investigation. We must know if our system has been compromised. Seconded, chimed the crystalline delegate. Seconded, buzzed the hive mind representative. One by one, delegates began to voice their support. The concept was alien to them, but the alternative, continuing a system built on lies, was worse. High Counselor Zeftar watched in growing horror as support for investigation grew. This is madness. You're destroying 12,000 years of peaceful civilization. Without trust in mediation, the galaxy will tear itself apart. Without trust in truth, the ancient collective representative said softly, mediation is meaningless. Chancellor Vethara's robes had settled into a deep blue of determination. The motion to investigate is carried. The Council will examine all evidence related to Zephyrian Trade Consortium activities over the past 50 years. You'll regret this, Zeftar screeched. When the galaxy falls into chaos, remember that the humans destroyed the peace. The humans, said the ancient collective representative, reminded us what peace actually means. The investigation took 3 standard weeks. Council investigators, guided by human legal experts, examined records, interviewed witnesses, and analyzed evidence with a thoroughness that had never been applied to galactic affairs before. What they found exceeded even the worst expectations. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium had been manipulating the Council mediation system for over a century. Fake emergencies, manufactured crises, and false accusations had netted them mining rights to 37 planets and exclusive trading agreements worth trillions of galactic credits. But the corruption went deeper. Several other species had adopted similar tactics, though none as successfully as the Zephyrians. The entire Council mediation system had become a tool for the powerful to exploit the weak, with the Council itself unknowingly serving as their enforcer. Dr. Park presented the final report to a stunned chamber. The evidence suggests that 63% of all Council mediations in the past century involved some form of fraud or deception. Species were punished for crimes they didn't commit. Justice was bought and sold like any other commodity. Chancellor Vethara's robes had turned a deep black, the color of mourning. We have failed. For 1,000 generations we have maintained order through lies. Not lies, the ancient collective representative corrected gently. Ignorance. You cannot be blamed for what you did not know. But now you do know. The question is what you will do about it. The chamber fell silent as delegates contemplated the magnitude of the crisis. Their entire civilization was built on a foundation of systematic fraud. Admiral Chen Wei spoke into the silence. The human position has not changed. We committed no crimes. We saved lives. We defended innocent people. We will not apologize for doing what was right. And we will not punish you for exposing the truth, Chancellor Vethara said firmly. The question now is how to rebuild a system based on justice instead of convenience. High Counselor Zeftar made one final attempt to salvage the situation. Even if some mediations were flawed, the system still maintained peace. Do you want to replace order with chaos? The ancient collective representative's massive form seemed to swell with ancient wisdom. Order built on injustice is not peace. It is merely the silence of the oppressed. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward. Humans offer a different way. Investigation before judgment. Evidence before punishment. Truth before harmony. And if the truth creates conflict? Asked the Silicon Collective. Then we deal with the conflict honestly, Admiral Chen replied. Real peace can only exist when everyone knows they will be treated fairly. Chancellor Vathara looked around the chamber. The old system is dead. We killed it the moment we chose to investigate instead of mediate. Now we must build something better. She raised her forearms in a gesture of formal proclamation. The Galactic Council hereby dissolves all mediation agreements obtained through fraudulent means. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium is expelled from the Council and their assets forfeit. All previous victims of false accusations will receive full restitution. The chamber exploded with noise again, but this time it was different. Instead of confusion and anger, there was something that hadn't been heard in council chambers for 1,000 years. Hope. High Counselor Zeftar stormed out, followed by his remaining supporters. But for every delegate that left, 2 others remained, eager to help build a system based on truth instead of lies. The galaxy would never be the same. The humans had shown them something they had forgotten, that sometimes refusing to compromise is the only way to find real justice, and it all started with 2 simple words. Prove it. 6 months after the dissolution of the old mediation system, the Galactic Council chambers had been completely redesigned. Gone were the circular seating arrangements that emphasized consensus and compromise. In their place stood a more complex structure with separate areas for accusers, defendants, and neutral investigators. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the new Justice Chamber, addressing the first session of the reformed Galactic Council. Representatives from 41 species watched as she spoke. 6 species had chosen to leave rather than accept the new system of evidence-based justice. The new protocols are simple, Elena explained to the assembled delegates. Any species wishing to make accusations against another must first present evidence to the Council Investigative Committee. The accused species has the right to examine this evidence and present counter-evidence. Only after thorough investigation will any judgment be made. Chancellor Vathara, whose robes now displayed the silver and gold of renewed hope, nodded approvingly. The humans have also suggested the establishment of an independent Council Defense Corps to ensure that all species, regardless of size or influence, have adequate representation during proceedings. The delegate from the smaller Peaceful Traders Alliance raised a tentacle. What about species who cannot afford such representation? Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as the Council's first Director of Justice Protocols, smiled. The Defense Corps will be funded by the Council itself. Justice should not depend on wealth. This concept still confused many species, but they were beginning to understand its importance. Over the past month, 17 previously mediated cases had been reopened under the new investigation protocols. In every single case, the original victims had been vindicated and their accusers exposed as frauds. The ancient collective representative, now serving as chief investigator, spoke in their deep, resonant voice. The investigation into consortium activities has revealed corruption spanning 2 centuries. 14 different species were falsely accused and punished for crimes committed by the consortium itself. Murmurs of amazement rippled through the chamber. The scope of the deception was still difficult for many to comprehend. The planet Kepler 442 has been returned to its rightful inhabitants. The ancient continued. The 2,000 survivors have established a thriving colony with full council protection. They have named their capital city New Hope in honor of the humans who refused to abandon them. Elena felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Those rescued colonists had become symbols of the new system, proof that doing the right thing, even when it was difficult, could create lasting positive change. What of the Zephyrian Trade Consortium? Asked the crystalline delegate. Chancellor Vathara's robes darkened slightly. Former High Counselor Zeftar and his senior staff have been arrested by their own people. The new Zephyrian government has formally apologized to all victims and agreed to full restitution. They have also applied for readmission to the Council under the new protocols. And their application? Elena asked. Will be evaluated using the same evidence-based standards as any other species. Chancellor Vathara replied firmly. No exceptions. This was perhaps the most radical change of all. Under the old system, Council membership had been based on political influence and economic power. Under the new system, species had to prove they were committed to justice and honesty before being admitted. The session was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Outer Rim territories. A small exploration vessel from the newly contacted Spiral Arm Collective appeared on the main display. "Honored Council," the ship's captain said, "we have discovered what appears to be a systematic campaign of territorial expansion by the Corporate States Alliance. 3 of our colonies have been destroyed, and the Alliance claims we attacked them first. Under the old system, this would have immediately triggered mediation proceedings. The Corporate States Alliance was a powerful member with significant influence, while the Spiral Arm Collective was a small, recently contacted species with little political weight. The mediation would have found some compromise that favored the Alliance while giving the collective token compensation. But this was the new system." "Captain," Chancellor Vithara said formally, "please transmit all evidence of these incidents to the Council Investigative Committee. The Corporate States Alliance will be notified that accusations have been made and will be given opportunity to present their evidence." "What if they refuse to cooperate?" the captain asked. Elena stepped forward. "Then they will be expelled from the Council and face economic sanctions until they comply. Under the new protocols, cooperation with justice proceedings is mandatory for all members." The captain's relief was visible even across the interstellar communication link. "Thank you, Honored Council. For the first time, we have hope that justice might actually be possible." After the communication ended, the delegate from the Corporate States Alliance requested permission to speak. "This new system is destroying galactic stability," he complained. "Under the old mediation protocols, this dispute would be resolved quickly with minimal disruption to trade and commerce." "Resolved in whose favor?" Elena asked pointedly. The delegate shifted uncomfortably. "In favor of galactic peace and prosperity." "You mean in favor of whoever had the most political influence," Dr. Sarah Chen corrected. "The new system favors whoever has the truth on their side. Truth is relative," the delegate protested. "What matters is maintaining order." The ancient collective representative's massive form leaned forward. "We maintained order for 12,000 years by ignoring truth. That order was built on the suffering of the weak and the greed of the strong. Perhaps it is time for a different kind of order." Admiral Chen Wei, attending the session as an observer, stood to address the chamber. "The human position has always been clear. We judge based on evidence, not influence. We punish based on guilt, not convenience. We protect based on need, not politics. And if this leads to conflict?" the corporate delegate demanded. "Then we face the conflict honestly," Elena replied. "Real peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice." Chancellor Vithara activated the chamber's formal protocols. "The Council will now vote on whether to proceed with full investigation of the Corporate States Alliance accusations." The vote was overwhelming. 38 species voted to investigate, with only the Corporate States Alliance and 2 of their closest trading partners voting against. "The motion carries," Chancellor Vithara announced. "The investigation will begin immediately." As the session ended and delegates began to file out, many stopped to speak with the human representatives. The concept of evidence-based justice was still new to most species, but they were eager to learn. Elena found herself standing next to the ancient collective representative as the chamber emptied. "Do you think we've actually changed anything?" she asked the massive being. The ancient's response came like wind through ancient trees. "Young human, you have done more than change something. You have reminded the galaxy of what justice actually means. For 12,000 years we chose order over truth, harmony over honesty, peace over principles. And now we choose differently. It will not be easy. There will be conflicts, disputes, species who prefer the old ways. But for the first time in millennia, those conflicts will be resolved based on truth rather than power." Elena looked around the redesigned chamber, with its emphasis on evidence and investigation, rather than compromise and mediation. "We didn't mean to start a revolution. The best revolutions are started by those who simply refuse to accept injustice," the ancient replied. "Your species did something that had never been done before. You said no to a system that demanded you compromise your principles for the sake of harmony. And look what happened," Elena said with a smile. "The galaxy didn't end. It got better." Dr. Sarah Chen joined them carrying a datapad full of reports. Elena, we've got requests from 23 species asking for human advisors to help them understand evidence-based legal systems. The University of New Terra wants to establish a galactic campus to teach justice protocols to other species. Elena nodded. Approve them all. The more species that understand these principles, the stronger the new system becomes. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Chancellor Vethara approached them. Her robes displayed the complex patterns that indicated deep gratitude in Altarian culture. Ambassador Vasquez, I wanted to thank you personally for what humanity has done for the galaxy. We didn't do anything special, Elena replied. We just refused to be punished for crimes we didn't commit. Exactly, Chancellor Vethara said. You did what no species in 12,000 years had been willing to do. You put truth above peace, justice above harmony, principles above politics. Elena looked out through the chamber's massive windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the Spiral Arm Collective was waiting to see if their accusations would be investigated fairly. Somewhere else, former victims of the old system were rebuilding their lives with returned territories and restored dignity. You know what the strangest part is? Elena said finally. What? We thought refusing to negotiate would make us enemies. Instead, it made us teachers. The galaxy didn't punish us for standing up for our principles.